Alright, so let me get this straight. Mark Carney is in Paris, probably sipping espresso and talking geopolitics, when suddenly everyone's like, hey Mark, what about Venezuelan oil? And he's all chill about it, basically saying Canadian oil is fine, totally fine, nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, Pierre Poilievre is back home practically screaming into the void about pipelines like he's been doing since, I don't know, the dawn of time? Classic Canadian politics, folks. Welcome back to Canadian Insights, where we break down the chaos so you don't have to. Today we're diving into this whole Venezuela situation, what it means for Canadian oil, and why Poilievre is once again banging the pipeline drum like it owes him money. Buckle up, because this one's got more layers than a Timmy's breakfast sandwich. So here's the deal. Nicolas Maduro, Venezuela's controversial leader for years, got captured by US forces over the weekend. Yeah, you heard that right. Captured. Like some kind of international action movie plot. Now, Venezuela's got oil, lots of it, some of the largest reserves in the world actually. But under Maduro, their oil industry has been about as functional as a screen door on a submarine. Mismanagement, corruption, sanctions, you name it. Production tanked. But now, with Maduro out of the picture, there's this expectation that a democratically elected government could come in, clean house, and suddenly Venezuela's pumping oil like it's going out of style. Which, spoiler alert, it kind of is, but that's a different video. Now you might be thinking, okay, so what? Venezuela makes more oil, good for them. But here's where it gets spicy for Canada. More Venezuelan oil means more competition in the global market. And guess who that puts pressure on? That's right, us. Canada. The land of maple syrup, hockey, and apparently existential oil anxiety. Because if Venezuela floods the market with cheaper oil, suddenly Canadian oil, which isn't exactly known for being the bargain bin option, starts looking less attractive to buyers. Especially American buyers, who've been our main customer for, well, forever. Enter Mark Carney, stage left, with the confidence of a man who definitely rehearsed this answer on the plane. He's basically like, relax everyone, Canadian oil is fine. It's low risk, low cost, and low carbon. The trifecta, if you will. He's banking on this whole Pathways project thing, which is supposed to be this massive carbon capture initiative that makes our oil more environmentally friendly. You know, so we can feel slightly less guilty about pulling black goo out of the ground. Carney's pitch is that even if Venezuela comes back online with cheaper oil, Canada's got the edge because we're stable, reliable, and working on being greener. It's like saying sure, that other restaurant has cheaper burgers, but ours won't give you food poisoning and we compost. Totally the same thing. But here's the kicker. While Carney's out here playing it cool, Pierre Poilievre is having none of it. Poilievre, the conservative leader who's made opposing pretty much everything the liberals do into a full-time sport, is once again screaming about pipelines. Specifically, a pipeline to the Pacific coast. Because in his mind, and honestly he's not entirely wrong here, the problem isn't just about being competitive. It's about market access. Canada sends the vast majority of its oil to the United States. Like, we're talking over 90%. We're basically that friend who only hangs out with one person and then freaks out when that person gets busy. Not a great strategy, right? Poilievre's argument is pretty straightforward. If we had a pipeline to the Pacific, we could ship oil to Asia, diversify our buyers, and not be so dependent on American demand. It's the whole don't put all your eggs in one basket thing, except the eggs are barrels of oil and the basket is the US market. Makes sense, right? But here's where Canadian politics gets really fun. Building pipelines in Canada is about as easy as getting a straight answer from a politician during an election. There are environmental concerns, indigenous rights, provincial politics, federal jurisdiction, lawsuits, protests, you name it. It's a bureaucratic nightmare wrapped in red tape and sprinkled with controversy. And look, both sides have valid points here. Carney's not wrong that making Canadian oil more competitive and environmentally friendly is important. The world is moving toward cleaner energy, whether we like it or not. If Canada wants to keep selling oil, we need to address the carbon footprint. The Pathways project, which involves major oil sands companies working together on carbon capture technology, could legitimately help. But here's the thing. That project is still in development. It's not operational yet. It's like saying don't worry about dinner, I've got a recipe bookmarked. Sure, the intention is there, but we're still hungry now, you know? On the flip side, Poilievre's pipeline push also makes sense from a pure market diversification standpoint. Relying almost entirely on one customer is risky business, especially when that customer is increasingly producing their own oil and might not need as much of ours in the future. Having access to Asian markets would give Canada leverage and options. But again, building that infrastructure is easier said than done, and it's not exactly a quick fix. We're talking years of planning, consultation, construction, and probably a few dozen court battles. So when Poilievre says we need to move quickly, it's a bit like saying we need to quickly bake a wedding cake. Sure, urgency is great, but you still need time to actually make the thing edible. Now let's circle back to Venezuela for a second, because this whole situation is kind of wild when you think about it. 4 years, Venezuelan oil production has been in the dumps. US sanctions, economic collapse, mismanagement, it's been a mess. But if a new government comes in and actually gets things running smoothly, we could see a significant increase in global oil supply. And more supply generally means lower prices, which is great if you're buying gas, not so great if you're selling oil. Canada's oil is already on the pricier side because of extraction costs, especially from the oil sands. So if Venezuelan oil comes back cheap and plentiful, Canadian producers are going to feel the squeeze. But here's where Carney's optimism might actually have some merit. Venezuela's oil industry won't just magically fix itself overnight. Even with new leadership, they're looking at years of rebuilding infrastructure, attracting investment, and establishing stable governance. It's not like flipping a light switch. So while yes, there's potential for increased Venezuelan production down the road, it's not an immediate crisis for Canada. We've got time to adjust, to invest in that carbon capture tech, to maybe, possibly, if the political stars align, build some new infrastructure. Maybe. Hopefully. We'll see. The real question is whether Canada can actually move fast enough to stay competitive. And that's where the political drama comes in. Carney and the Liberals are betting on technology and environmental improvements to keep us in the game. Poilievre and the Conservatives are betting on infrastructure and market diversification. And honestly, we probably need both. Shocking, I know, a nuanced take in Canadian politics. But seriously, relying on just one strategy seems short-sighted. We need to make our oil cleaner and we need better access to different markets. Why not both? Oh right, because politics. Here's the reality check, though. Global oil markets are changing, and fast. Renewable energy is growing, electric vehicles are becoming more common, and countries are committing to net zero emissions. The long-term future of oil, Canadian or otherwise, is uncertain. So while we're debating pipelines and carbon capture and Venezuelan competition, we also need to be thinking about what comes next. How do we transition our economy? How do we support workers in the oil industry if demand drops? How do we invest in future energy sources? These are the conversations we should be having alongside the immediate market concerns. But instead, we get the usual political theater. Liberals say everything's fine, trust the plan. Conservatives say everything's broken, build the pipeline. And meanwhile, the rest of us are just trying to figure out why gas prices are still so high if oil is supposedly so cheap. It's exhausting, honestly. But that's why you're here, right? To make sense of this circus. And trust me, the circus is in full swing. So what's the takeaway from all this? Canadian oil faces some challenges ahead, particularly if Venezuelan production ramps up. But we're not doomed, despite what the more dramatic headlines might suggest. We've got options, we've got time, and we've got politicians who are at least talking about solutions, even if they can't agree on what those solutions should be. Carney's confidence in Canadian competitiveness isn't completely unfounded, but it does depend on following through with those carbon capture projects and staying cost competitive. Poilievre's pipeline push also has merit, but the political and logistical hurdles are significant and won't be solved with urgency alone. The Venezuela situation is definitely something to watch. If their oil industry makes a comeback, it'll shake up global markets and Canada will need to adapt. But adaptation is kind of our thing, right? We're Canadians. We apologize when other people bump into us and we survive winters that would make polar bears cry. We can handle some oil market competition. Probably. Maybe. We'll figure it out. Eventually. Alright, that's it for today's deep dive into Canadian oil, Venezuelan politics, and the never-ending pipeline debate. If you made it this far, congratulations, you're officially more informed than like 70% of people arguing about this stuff on Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, do me a solid and smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already because we're putting out content every single day and you don't want to miss the next round of Canadian political chaos. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Are you Team Carney or Team Poilievre on this one? Or are you like me, Team let's just figure it out and stop yelling at each other? Let's chat. And hey, share this with someone who needs to know what's actually going on with Canadian oil instead of just reading rage-bait headlines. Until next time, stay informed, stay skeptical, and stay Canadian. Catch you in the next one.